Lord just bless this time, Father. Speak to us. So here we are. Hey guys, Pastor Gary here once again, and we are in our real time. We've been discussing end-time events, the events basically out of the book of Revelation, and of course with some of the things that are happening around us and how they correlate with one another. And excited to be back with you. I think we've done 5 or 6 of these so far. And so if you haven't witnessed one of them, if you're new to it, make sure you go back and check out the other ones. And we are joined again, I would say, by my co-host and by the person doing the main teaching here, and that's Pastor Buz Offenbecker. Buzzy, of course, was on staff here at Calvary Chapel, and he got out of the Lord's will and headed to Virginia. And he headed to Virginia, where he is now pastoring. Is it Smith Mountain Lake Bible Church?
Well, it's Stanton Baptist Church, but it's right on Smith Mountain Lake. You know, somebody has to suffer for Jesus down here, so you know what? That's where I am.
Yeah. So, are you near? Oh, I'm thinking of Staunton, because Staunton's right along 81 there, the 81 corridor. So, you're
this church is actually spelled the same way, but it's actually in the town of Puddlestick. And I'm looking out the back window, and I can see Smith Mountain Lake from here. And so we're right just about on the lake.
Are you at the church, or are you at home?
I'm at the church right now.
Oh, okay, very good. So, so Buzzy's joining us, and we have been going through pretty much chronologically the events of Revelation, the events of what's going to be unfolding. Remember, the book of Revelation is those things which were, we were talking about, we really didn't get in church history, but we were kind of talking about the things which had happened, the things which are happening, and then the things which will happen, and sort of the outline for the book of Revelation. And Buzz has been guiding us through it. And so I say let's just pick up. You said you may want to do a little review, Buzz. Why don't you go ahead and do the little review for us?
Yeah, that basic outline that you just mentioned is chapter 1, verse 19, that says, and Jesus tells John to write down the things that you have seen, write down the things that are, and those that are to take place after this. Now that last phrase actually means that once they begin to occur, they happen in succession. There's no break there. And so I think it's fascinating that what we have written down in Revelation is the future for us, for the church, and for those who are still here after the church is taken away. If you remember, chapter 4, verse 1 gives us a picture, I believe, of the rapture.
Yes.
The Antichrist then is revealed, and then we have the opening up of that 7-sealed scroll. And as each seal is opened, there is another event or a series of events that happen as a result of the working of the Antichrist. Chapter 7, we're introduced to the 144,000 Hebrew evangelists. And then in chapter 8, and again, in Revelation, I believe that Revelation was given to us chronologically, in chronological order, with breaks in between. And so for a chapter or two, we'll get a chronology of events, and then there'll be a chapter or two that kind of takes a break or a commercial to explain a little bit better about the things that we've just seen.
Okay.
And so chapter 8 then begins these trumpet judgment. You remember when the 7th seal was taken off, there was silence in heaven, and then 7 angels with 7 trumpets appeared. And then as each angel sounds his trumpet, there is an event that happens on earth. Now again, we have to remember, and I kind of keep reminding myself, John now, the Apostle John, the last living apostle, is now placed in a position or a vantage point where he is able to see the events that are happening in heaven as well as the events that are happening on earth simultaneously. And he's trying to write all of these things down as they're being revealed to him in first century vernacular. And so that's why some of the phrases seem a little strange to us. Well, because it was written back then, 2,000 years ago, when John had no idea of the technology and weaponry that we have today.
Yeah, how in the world would you be able to do that, right? How in the world would you know how to write if it is a helicopter, if it's a ship, if it's a tank, or how would you even begin to fathom when the closest thing you've probably seen anything close to it would be a chariot or something like that. So, Yeah, it certainly would be a leap, that's for sure. So, so at this point, then, where are we when we're talking about sort of midway through the trumpets? We're coming into the woes. So, where are we in the spectrum or on the chronology of the time scale?
Okay, I believe now we're approaching the end or toward the end of that first 3.5 years.
Oh, okay, very good.
You remember the trumpet sounded, one was hail and fire mixed with blood, and then the next one was the huge mountain, all ablaze. The third one was the great torch, and a lot of destruction happening on earth. Now, the trumpet judgments, now that the scroll is open, are the judgments of God. These are not the doings of Antichrist. These are the judgments of God. And so as each trumpet sounds, there is an event that happens that is not human-induced. This comes from God. And so the fourth angel sounds the trumpet, and you remember, I think this is where we left off, where a third of the sun and the moon and the stars were struck, and they went dark. It's almost like God took that rheostat and turned it down 1/3. And so there's a lot of havoc going on Earth right now during this particular time as we approach now the end of this first 3.5 years.
And now, do you believe this is a cumulative effect? In other words, the shrubbery, the vegetation, those types of things, and then after that we see, wormwood coming on the scene, and then you see this darkness. So the effects of everything else, it's not like those things are lessening and then the next thing starts. It's those things are happening, then the next thing happens, and the next thing happens, right?
Yeah, I believe it's one heaped on the other. Now, again, it's a process, just like Moses, with Pharaoh. There was one plague, and then after a period of time, then the next plague would happen. Well, it doesn't mean the other plague had reduced itself. I mean, the damage was still there. I mean, the flies were gone, the gnats were gone, but the damage was still there. And so people, I'm sure, during this time are frantically trying to put out the fires and trying to explain the reason why it's dark, where it was light. I mean, all of those things are heaped upon another. So there's total, I believe, chaos and confusion in the world, while Antichrist is at the same time trying to wrest control of the earth to himself. Maybe he's attributing those things to himself. We don't know.
Yes, very good point. And so that brings us then to our, once we went through the fourth trumpet, and then following the fourth trumpet, now John is giving up a special warning about the three woes. And the three woes then are the last three, the last three, the fifth, sixth, and seventh trumpet, right? Am I mistaken, or does that sound right?
Well, when you look at the chronology per chapter, if you look at chapter 14 as an explanation of what has already happened, then yes, I believe so. But if you look at those three woes, there's angels. It's almost like they're announcing or giving people one last opportunity to respond to the gospel of Christ. And I find it amazing, but we see the very heart of God here, that as these events progress, time and time again, God gives people an opportunity to repent from their sins, to turn from their evil ways, and to respond to the gospel. And so I believe that's what those woes are that happen over in chapter 14, the three angels. One is giving the gospel, one is giving a warning to Babylon, and the third is giving a warning to the people. And so, are these literal angels? Well, John's describing them as angels.
Yeah.
And are they flying up in the air? Do they have loudspeakers? Probably people are watching them on their phones and on their computers as they're making their announcements.
Right.
What a sight that must be. Now, does that happen? Is that simultaneous with the trumpets? I don't know. I don't really know there. But we haven't come to the fifth and sixth and seventh trumpet yet. And so when they are described in chapters 9 through 11, then chapter 14 gives us the announcement then of these three angels. the three woes, or again, as if you're from Jersey, it's the three yos.
Yos, guys. Yeah, yeah. So you moved out of Jersey. Now you turned against us also. Et tu, Buzzy.
That's right. I've got a lot of Jersey jokes that I use down here in Virginia, but they look at me weird, like they don't understand.
They don't understand your accent. Isn't that funny? So
well, that's true. Yeah.
So now you're saying then that, so do you believe then? Okay, so the fifth trumpet sounds, and which basically we're having the demonic locusts, right? I mean, is that what you see? Is that the first woe, or is that just the fifth trumpet, or are they one and the same?
I think they're separate, and again, I think when you look at those angels, what they're saying, the angels themselves aren't wreaking havoc. They're just announcing.
Okay.
In other words, the first angel of woe is, he gives out the gospel, fear God and give him glory. The second angel is the warning to Babylon, fallen is Babylon the Great. The third angel warns the people, whoever receives the mark or doesn't receive the mark. So I believe those are just warning angels. But if I take it chronologically, then those events happen immediately after the trumpets and kind of introduce us to the bowl judgments that are coming on.
Okay. Well, what is the fifth trumpet then? What is happening during the fifth trumpet?
Well, the fifth trumpet is, you talk about something very freaky. The fifth trumpet talks about a star that has fallen from heaven
right.
to earth. And then it says, he was given the key to the shaft of the bottomless pit. And so this isn't just a star like we saw in the first couple of trumpets. This is actually a being that comes to earth. Now, this is my belief. And again, if we look at chapters 10 or actually chapters 12 and 13, we're given another commercial break. And what I believe happens in chapter 12, we're given a continuation of what happens here at the fifth angel that sounds the trumpet. Because chapter 12, beginning with verse 7, says, and then war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels...
Oh, I see where you're going then.
Well, who's the dragon? Well, we know
right.
the dragon is Satan. I mean, it says that.
Right.
But it was not strong enough.
It's not Puff? It's not Puff the Magic Dragon? I'm sorry. I was just assuming.
So he puffed his way to earth.
That's
so
right.
Not strong enough, and they lost their place in heaven, and the great dragon was thrown down.
Yes, I always assumed it was a fallen angel, so that would make sense. That coincides with what you're saying then.
And it says, and he identifies this star as Satan himself in verse 9 in chapter 12.
Right.
And he hurled to earth and his angels with him. Now, we have to stop there, and we have to remind ourselves that this had happened before. You remember Satan lost his place in heaven in the book of Isaiah. Why? Because he wanted to be greater than God.
Right.
He wanted to worship him. And so he was cast out of heaven, him and his angels. The Bible says that some of those angels God has kept in darkness, in chains,
yes,
according to the
right.
book of Jude. And others, I believe, roam the earth to do Satan's bidding. But Satan, even today, still has access to God. And we see that in the book of Job, where the angels presented themselves, and there was Job, and there was Satan, rather. And,
yeah.
And so that happened twice. And so I believe that Satan, what is he known as? He's known as what? The accuser of...
Right, the slander, right, the accuser of the brethren.
Yeah, and so Satan, I believe, has, even though he's the prince and power of the air, he has access to the throne. Well, during this time, I believe there's warfare in heaven. During this time, now this before we're at this fifth trumpet, and Satan is finally cast out for good. Him and his angels are now cast to earth to do his bidding. And so when we read the events of this fifth trumpet, it says that he, or this star that was thrown out of heaven, I believe it to be Satan, he opened the shaft of the bottomless pit, where the demons are, according to the book of Jude.
Yes.
And from their staff there rises up smoke from a great furnace. The sun and air were darkened with the smoke from the shaft. And then all of a sudden we're introduced to the hideous demonic creatures. There, all of a sudden smoke comes from the abyss, and when the smoke settles, all of a sudden there's these beings that appear that look like scorpions, and they're given the power of scorpions. They were told not to harm the grass. Don't harm the grass, don't eat grass, which is, I guess, what they normally would do.
Buzzy, hey, it's muffled right now. Where's your phone there, buddy? I'm trying to clean it up just a little bit. Go ahead.
Okay. You want me to freak?
That's good. Right there is better. You're good. Wherever you are, right there, that sounds better.
Okay. But anyway, when he opens the abyss, the smoke then comes up from the abyss, and when the smoke settles, there are these demonic-like locusts that appear, and they have the power as a scorpion would have, and they're given the power to sting only those people who do not have the mark of God on their foreheads. And so that tells me right there that if you are a believer during this time, you are marked.
Yes.
Just like the unbeliever will be marked, so will the believer as well. And so these scorpions, these demonic creatures that have been released by Satan himself, will now torment the unsaved for 5 months, but yet they will not die.
Right.
The people die, and their torment is like the torment of a scorpion. And someone describes the pain of a scorpion bite like this. It's pain which can be intense, numbness, and tingling in the area around the sting, but little or no swelling. But then there's muscle twitching and thrashing, unusual head and neck and eye movements, drooling, sweating, restlessness, unconsolable crying, rapid breathing, high blood pressure.
Like the first day of school. Is that what that sounds like, the first day of school?
There you go. We're my first day.
Yeah, exactly.
Muscle twitching and weakness. And the more serious cases, people will roll around on the ground, foaming at the mouth and intense pain.
Wow.
If you can imagine that. Have you ever seen that series on TV, The Walking Dead? I mean, that's what these people are going to be like, and they will have no ability to avoid
Now
that.
you said something. Let me interrupt you for a second, just so chronologically we can have this right. So if you mentioned the mark that God is going to put on His people that are tribulation saints that have come to know Jesus, and so when these scorpions come up from the abuso, from the abyss, and they start this hideous blight, basically against the people that are here, torture. You're saying that the Antichrist has already, that the mark of the beast has already been applied. Now we're halfway through, right? We're about halfway through the tribulation at this point.
I believe the mark of the beast is going to happen during this time, because there's another thing that happens at this time. And we get a clue from that from chapter 13, where we're introduced the beast that comes out of the sea. Of course, we know that to be the Antichrist.
Right.
And it says that he will suffer a fatal wound, but will miraculously be raised. And so I believe, and this is just my personal opinion, that when Satan is cast down after he loses his battle in heaven, that he will at that point not only release this demonic horde from the abyss, but he will also inhabit the Antichrist, and so it will look like a resurrection. And so when you look at and you read through chapter 13, it's a miraculous thing that has happened, and people worship him because he was dead and then now he is alive. And so I believe at that point that Satan inhabits the Antichrist, and they become really the 3 in 1 with the false prophet. And it's at that point that I believe at this midway point that Satan, Antichrist, then breaks that 7-year treaty that they had with Israel, and at that point that the abomination of desolation, or an image of himself, is set up in the Jewish temple that's been rebuilt, and will demand then that the world will worship him, and which is, by the way, what Satan wanted from the beginning, is it not?
Yes.
According to Isaiah.
Of course.
And those who choose to worship him will receive that mark, and those who choose not to will already have the mark of God on there.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, looking at the outlay of times that we live in today, I concur with you. I believe personally that the mark of the beast. People are asking me about vaccinations today and things like that, and they're saying, what if it's the mark of the beast? What if it's the mark of the beast? And I tell them a couple things. First of all, as the true church, if it were possible for the true church, which I don't believe it is, if it were possible for the true church to receive the mark of the beast, then we would be told, this is the mark of the beast, don't take it. In other words, God would warn the church. But I don't believe it's possible. I believe partly because of when the text says, if it were possible, even the elect would be deceived. I don't think it's possible because the elect is gone. We've already been raptured out. But I do believe halfway through, we can see around us, you start hearing certain things being told about a vaccination where people are sort of being set up, like, you're not going to be able to do certain things. If you can't prove you got this vaccination, this is what the agenda is being pushed as. You're not going to be able to get on airplanes. You're not going to be able to go into stores. You're not going to be able to do a lot of the things that we used to have the choice. Hey, listen, I get asked every time I go to a doctor if I want a flu shot. I say, no, I don't want a flu shot. It's never anything more than just that. Now, once this coronavirus supposed vaccination comes out, people will be asked, or maybe not even asked, you might be told you must receive a vaccination or you won't be able to buy and sell, as it were. So I'm not saying that's exactly what's going to happen, so please don't take it as a fear-mongering thing. It's just you can see when Antichrist comes on the scene and says, hey, you've got to receive my mark, I'll know you're loyal to me. We'll all know you're loyal to the one world religious system, to the one world banking system. We'll know you're loyal, but you must receive. And the scripture says, and correct me if I'm wrong, Buzzy, the scripture says they will wander after the beast, which what I was taught in the language means they will gladly follow the beast. They're not going to be forced or coerced into following the beast. Most people will want that mark gladly.
Well, yeah, people want the easy way out. And so if I receive the mark of the beast, well, then what? I'll be able to buy, I'll be able to sell, I'll be able to do business as usual. And so, like you mentioned, I believe what's happening today is, and will be, there'll be protocols that will be put in place that when the next time something like this happens, and it will, the protocols will already be there. And so as this happens time and time and time again, by the time the Antichrist comes around, people will be used to it. They will know what to do. It won't be anything new to them. We know that according to Revelation 13, both the poor and the rich, small and great, will receive this mark, and it says there on the right hand or the forehead. It's interesting, I was at the market a couple months ago now, and as a person was checking through, you know how you put your debit card in right
Sure.
now? Well, he just asked her for the scanner, and he put his arm underneath. And she scanned his arm, and that was the same as a credit card.
Oh, really?
I couldn't believe it. I saw it happening right in front of my eyes. Unbelievable. And so the Revelation 13 identifies this. It says, no one will buy or sell unless they have the mark of the beast or the number of its name. And then chapter 15, verse 18, or 13, verse 18 says, this calls for wisdom. Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of the man, and his number is 666. And so there are many who believe that this mark on the hand, the mark on the forehead, will be that particular number.
Yeah, I think that I see it being, in what I'm seeing unfolding around us, it's more of a system. It's the beast's system. Now, I'm not denying that there is a person of the Antichrist, that there have been Antichrists, there's a spirit of Antichrist, but I do believe that there is a definitive Antichrist who is inhabited by the enemy, by Satan. But I also believe that he is working within a system. And what we have seen, and boy, Buzzy, what we've seen in the last even 10 years as far as technology and what they're able to do and how they're able to track people, how we know that there are great swaths between out in New Mexico and Utah and places where underground they built these huge bunkers where they do nothing but accumulate information on people all day. We know we have organizations, NSA and others, and it's well known, the information. We know that there's no such thing as privacy. If you're using a phone, you have no expectation of privacy. If you're punching and stroking a key on the computer, you have no expectation of privacy. What are they accumulating? All this information. Where is it being dumped into? Well, into these big underground bunkers. And why is it being done? Well, they tell you it's just simply for whatever means they want. But you know, listen, if you get a tyrannical regime into office, you are susceptible that they can take whatever information they want, build a case against you that you have no idea what's going on, yet they've accumulated everything that's been texted, everything that's been talked about, all these things. And you can see how, again, people are very susceptible, all of us are, because if they told us tomorrow, which you and I, back when we were younger, you and I would have never believed they were able to kind of corral the people of the world. But today, it's very easy to corral the people of the world and to manipulate them to say things like, buddy, you're not going to get on that plane unless you can produce an identification that says you've got this unless you were vaccinated against this particular disease. And I'm amazed by how quickly that they've done this, and I'm also amazed by how they're setting us up to willfully desire these things. Again, just to be clear, I'm not saying that the vaccination is the mark of the beast. Please do not think I'm saying that. What I'm saying, though, is it's a dress rehearsal to prepare us so that when that day comes, many people who will be desirous, thinking they're doing humanity a favor by getting the vaccine, they're going to gladly take the mark of the beast. Gladly take the mark of the beast.
Well, yeah, and this just proves to me again and again that we are indeed living in the last days. And again, the last